To race in Vancouver. We're ready for the opening ceremonies. Here's our master of ceremonies from CBC Sports, Steve Armitage. Steve?
Armitage on the victory podium.
Thank you and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The name Molson is synonymous with motor racing in Canada. Molson Breweries was instrumental in bringing the Molson Indy to Vancouver, where the event and the community come together to make this Canada's largest sporting event. On behalf of Molson Breweries, please welcome the Senior Vice President and General Manager of the Western Division of Molson Breweries, Mr. John Winter.
Thank you, Steve. Certainly on behalf of Molson Breweries, Molson Canadian, all our wonderful co-sponsors, our partners, it's my pleasure to welcome you all to this fourth Molson Indy Vancouver, probably the fourth, the biggest and the best so far. It's going to be a great race today. We're certainly all excited about the prospects of potentially having a Canadian winner with Scott holding the pole and Paul Tracy and Ross Bentley not far behind. And we're looking forward to a wonderful race and hopefully having a Canadian on the podium here at the end of the race for us. One of the things that hosting a race such as the Molson Indy Vancouver does for us is that it allows us to leverage the event within the community. And on Thursday night, with the help of the Variety Club, there was a gala held at the Convention Center, and the proceeds of which, $40,000, have been turned over to Variety to help Variety's kids, and we're very pleased with that result. It's terrific that we're able to be back here in Vancouver. We're pleased that we're able to bring the fourth year, and certainly there will be future years to us. Vancouver has proven to be a terrific race community and a real great supporter of this event, and that's much pleasure for us. We expect to have a record crowd here today, and that's a great accomplishment. Finally, let me pay compliment to the 1,300 volunteers, those people around the facility here today in the red T-shirts. Without their help, without their support, we couldn't put on a first-class event of this nature. Thank you very much. And to the drivers and the teams, a safe race. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John Winter. And now, ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome a great supporter of the Molson Indy Vancouver at Pacific Place, and one of the people who helped make the Molson Indy happen, the Mayor of the City of Vancouver. Ladies and gentlemen, His Worship, Mayor Gordon Campbell.
Thank you very much, Steve. This is our fourth Molson Indy in Vancouver, and it looks like it's going to be the biggest and hopefully the best for all of us. I want to congratulate Molson's for continually bringing such an excellent event to our city. But most importantly, I'd like to thank all of you for coming and making it such a great celebration in Vancouver. Last year there was some question as to whether we would be here this year, and because of Molson's and all the sponsors, we are. And we're ready to go with what will be a truly great event. We have a great fan here today with us, who is a resident of Vancouver from Vancouver Centre, the Prime Minister of Canada, the Right Honourable Kim Campbell.
Prime Minister, part of the circuit is in your writing. I'm sure you're going to take credit for this marvelous weather today and over the past couple of days.
Well, you know, Steve, ever since I've been Prime Minister, every time I've been home, the weather has been great. So I think there's a lesson to be learned there.
Mayor, we've got, or Prime Minister, we've got 3 Canadians on the starting grid. 2 from the east, 1 from the west.
Oh, listen, this is, I think we're all united in supporting them all, though it's really excited to have Ross Bentley, a local person, in this race. But they've all made a terrific mark for Canadian racing.
And now, Prime Minister, if you would, those 4 magic words to get this race underway.
Gentlemen, start your engines.
Sir, what a difference a year makes. 1 year ago at this time, as the cars were set to go, there was all that controversy. There's the pole sitter, Scott Goodyear from McKinsey. All the controversy about the tires. Rain was threatening. They changed to rain tires. No controversy surrounding rain this year, but the big story, I think, here in Vancouver, that's Bobby Rahal on the left, Scott Goodyear on the right, could be fuel consumption.
Well, yes, and like you said a little bit earlier, Brian, it's cool today. So that means the engines are going to produce more horsepower. Horsepower takes fuel. So they're going to use a little bit more fuel than normal. Normally speaking, though, the racetrack here in Vancouver uses a lot of fuel because they go from such a high speed to such a low speed and back up again, and they're turning like 13+ thousand RPM all the time. So the guys are having a fuel problem. What we're going to see as the race goes on is they're going to cut their fuel consumption back by a little knob on the dash that just cuts the fuel back, and they short shift. What we call short shifting, they shift like, for example, at 12,500 RPM as opposed to maybe 13.2.
As the cars start away, we're going to show you the grid in just a minute, but for the viewers at home, they're simply moving from side to side to warm the tires. Now there will be 2 parade laps, then an official warm-up lap, a total of 3. Then they are scheduled to race. This race is over 102 laps. Now, should they not get a green flag after the first 3 laps, the 2 practice and the warm-up lap, and they have to go around with the pace car again, that 4th lap would count in that 102-lap race total. Right now, as the cars are coming to the end of Pacific Boulevard, the fastest area on this course, a great passing area, it's a 26-car field, and let's have a look. And this 26-car field just coming out of the tunnel on the north side of BC Place Stadium. The pole sitter Scott Goodyear, followed by Bobby Rahal, Nigel Mansell, Paul Tracy, Al Unser Jr., Robbie Gordon. They are on the 2nd of 3 practice laps here, and again it's a 102-lap race. Now, Bobby, you took me out in a pace car yesterday, not really a pace car, one of the official PPG cars, the Cadillac. I'm still shaking, but you said the course is a lot smoother.
Well, Brian, we only did 150 miles an hour. I don't know what you could complain about.
We only did 150 miles an hour, and you scraped the paint off the mirrors, but this course is a lot smoother this year. Let's take a look at the course now. Let's begin on the right side of the screen where the checkered flag is.
That's where we are also.
That's the pits area. You then move to the left. That's that straightaway down Pacific Boulevard. They'll hit about 190 190 miles an hour. The best passing area is before that hairpin turn on the left side of your screen. Again, why is it good to pass there?
Well, it's where everybody goes from 190 miles an hour down to, for example, ironically, probably 40, 50 miles an hour down there at the most, and it's a long hairpin. So it's a little bit faster than a regular hairpin, but it is a hairpin. Then they come back and you can see all those little wiggles that look like turns. They can straighten those out. And then you see the first one on the left, that's a chicane. Then around to the right, that goes under the tunnel, then another chicane. So it's a crooked road all the way around, Brian.
It's a crooked road, but it's a very fast one. The cars, as we look at the overall point standings, hold those standings for just a minute. The cars now completing the second of 3 warm-up laps. You get 20 points for a victory, 1 point for the pole, and 1 point for the most laps led. So the best Fittipaldi and Tracy can do today is pick up a total of 21 points. Racing conditions, absolutely ideal here on the West Coast today. It's sunny, but it's cool. And as Bobby said, great conditions for both cars and drivers. There's that hairpin turn, the great passing area. Now, after this lap, we should be ready to race. We're waiting to take a look at the starting area. They could actually start racing on this lap, but it looks like, no, they'll go one more lap. They will go to 3 laps before officially getting into that total of 102.
It's the third time by that they started. The pace car still has his lights on. This is how all the folks at home could tell. When that pace car turns his lights out, he means they're going the next lap. Now, if something happens, they'll just leave the lights on and keep going another lap.
Bobby, we see that tunnel under the north side of BC Place Stadium. Very tough, especially when the drivers. Now, yesterday, you took me through there about 100 miles an hour. The faster we went, the tougher it was for the eyes to adjust.
Well, the eyes go from good daylight. Look at that. It's bright, sunny today. There's no clouds in the sky. It goes from that. The pace car lights are off right now. You go through that thing, or you go from light and you hit the darkness, the shadows underneath. It's really hard to see. And their guys are all worried about accident. Now they're getting ready to start this time by. You can see the guys starting to line up together now side by side. At any rate, they leave the tunnel and come back to the sunlight again. Now that makes it hard on their eyes. The pace car is off now. The guys are coming down by themselves.
Scott Goodyear, and they do not get a start here in Vancouver because Bobby Rahal jumped the start. The pole sitter, there's Rahal, there's Paul Tracy, and now there is the pole sitter, Scott Goodyear.
Now, they've argued about this all year long. They've had bad problems. Wally Dallenbach is fined, penalized, stop-and-go penalties for the different drivers, and they just keep bringing them back in on this. Now, they're not joking anymore. Wally Dallenbach has decided. He sets up in the control tower. He's the one that tells the flagman what to do. If the flagman doesn't see it right, though, he can make up his own decision.
Now this lap will count in the 100-lap total. There is Scott Goodyear, the pole sitter, followed by Bobby Rahal, Nigel Mansell, Paul Tracy, Al Unser Jr., and Robbie Gordon. Now, it's Goodyear on the right of your screen. He must cross first.
Well, not really. It's not going to be that touchy, but you see, that's a long ways. That's a half of a city block difference. Now, Scott knew that Rahal had to jump on him. He decided to believe in the flagman, to stay off the gas till he gets a fair start the next time. Now, remember, at a track like this, it's really important who's going to lead.
All right, very quickly, Ken Daniels.
Well, Brian, they had trouble starting Scott Goodyear's engine. In fact, they had to borrow the starter from Bobby Rahal to start Scott Goodyear's. Let's hope it's not a sign of things to come. And Derek Walker tells me that some of the Chevy folks have told him there's no way without a yellow the Chevy cars are going to finish without fuel. They need some yellows.
All right, Kenny, we should be ready to race again. Bobby says it's not absolutely essential that Goodyear's ahead, but he has to be. I mean, let's face it, for all intents and purposes, he has to cross the line first. If it's 4 or 5 feet difference, that's okay. They now come down through the start-finish area. That's Goodyear on the right and Bobby Rahal on the left. And we are racing in Vancouver. Goodyear, followed by Rahal, and Emerson Fittipaldi makes a move back in the field, but down through the straight up Pacific Boulevard. It's Scott Goodyear, Bobby Rahal, Paul Tracy, Nigel Mansell.
See, the guy on the pole is supposed to have the advantage at the start. That's the idea of trying to qualify on the pole. Scott got an even deal. He had the best line going in the first turn.
Paul Tracy and Robbie Gordon have passed Nigel Mansell. That is Ari Luyendyk. Johnny Unser goes around Ari Luyendyk. Luyendyk second at the Indy 500, already in trouble here in Vancouver.
Now that's right down at the hairpin turn. There's no obvious reason that we can see right now why his car quit, but he is not having any power.
Scott Goodyear, a winner at Michigan last year. He's had a tough 1993. Scott Goodyear, and there's a shunt at the other end. There's Johnny Unser involved. It's at that chicane going into the tunnel, so that will bring out a yellow. Scott Goodyear through the start-finish area, completing one lap. Scott Goodyear is the leader. Car 29 is Olivier Griard. We're under a full-course yellow in Vancouver. All kinds of action early. That is Griard. Looks like Johnny Unser, and car 42 is Jeff Wood. Let's have a look, Bobby.
As they come around, there's Griard up front. He spun out, just absolutely lost it right in front of him. There was really no contact, or at least if there was, nothing of any importance, but he blocked the road. Johnny got captured behind. The red car right behind got captured behind. There's no way to get through these little turns that are that sharp on this track.
Well, we heard Ken Daniels talk about the fuel. There's Robbie Gordon driving for A.J. Foyt. Now, this is a big story because Gordon had the 6th fastest qualifying time. He is being pushed off the track. That is the straightaway in Pacific Boulevard where they hit 190 miles an hour. Now, they're rerouting the cars while they clear that chicane. So we're under full course yellow in Vancouver. A wild start. Stay with us. Lots more to come. We'll continue with the 1993 Molson Indy Vancouver right after this. R.A. Lyondike won the Indianapolis 500 in 1990. He has had just a terrible year here in 1993. And early on in Vancouver, he is out of the race as we go down to Sally Larvick. Sally?
I am in Robbie Gordon's pit, and I'm with John Anderson. And John, this has got to be terribly disappointing for you.
Well, it is at this stage of the race. It's bad enough at any stage, but to just take the green and be out of it.
Do you know what happened? Did Robbie say anything?
It's like we've either broken a CV or a drive shaft. We're just ready to replace one as he comes in.
Okay, did he say what happened? Was it as a result of an accident?
No, he didn't say. I just that he lost drive.
Okay, John is trying to figure out right now what happened also, as you can imagine what it's like in this pit. Let's go down to Ken Daniels.
Thank you, Sally. Chip Ganassi, the problems with Ari?
Well, apparently he went down into turn 1 there, and you got a bunch of people on the track. They really don't have the experience. This is 2 weeks in a row where we get caught out because of inexperienced drivers. And they're down there, they're all banging around with each other. It's just a sad state of affairs when you have qualified drivers and then you got these young guys that don't have any business being out there yet, taking guys out. It's pathetic.
Chip Ganassi, very unhappy, as you can tell, Brian.
All right, Ken Daniels, the car is now on lap number 4, 2 under the green, 2 under the yellow. We'll have at least one more lap under the full course yellow. There's the race leader and the pole sitter, Scott Goodyear from Newmarket, Ontario, Bobby Rahal, Paul Tracy, Nigel Mansell. They are lifting car 39 out of the way. That is not 39, that is Griard. That is car 29. Car 39 is Ross Bentley from Coquitlam, and Ross is still in the race down through the start-finish area. There is Goodyear, followed by Bobby Rahal, Paul Tracy, Nigel Mansell. Interesting to see Teo Fabi has made a move. There's Johansson. There is car 4, Emerson Fittipaldi. Go back to Chip Ganassi and the inexperienced drivers. He called it a disgraceful situation. Bobby, what do you think?
Well, ironically, it's always bad when you get back to the back of the pack, but his car shouldn't have been back that far. He should have been in those problems. Ironically, he's got the latest and the newest of everything, and that whole team has just not run good, with the exception of qualifying on the pole in Indianapolis. They've had a terrible year. So I don't have a lot of sympathy for Chip Ganassi. Now, the other guys, like we saw Robbie Gordon out, that had nothing to do with any of the accidents before or after. He just had a mechanical failure, which is kind of sad to have also, because he's really been competitive in the race.
Robbie Gordon, one of the quote-unquote young lions driving for A.J. Foyt with a Lola Ford, is out of the race, as is R.A. Lyondike. There is Willie T. Ribbs, car 75, driving for Bill Cosby, a Lola Ford combination, and Ribbs is not officially out of the race, but he appears to have major problems.
You know, one thing we've got to tell people is it's really difficult for slower cars especially to do any passing on this track, so the guys in the back are always trying to take advantage of that hairpin turn at the end of the long straightaway. They'd like to grab up 4 or 5 positions because ultimately it might make a difference towards the end of the race. But if you're a serious, experienced race driver, you realize that what you do really early on doesn't count all that much. Except for like Scott Goodyear, it's easier on him to lead the race than it is for him to be behind somebody.
As we run under a full course yellow, there's Al Unser Jr. in car 5. Car 50 is, or car 3 rather, car 50 is Andrea Montermini, the young Italian driver. You're very impressed with this driver, Bobby Unser.
Yes, he's one of the brightest guys. He doesn't get an awful lot of attention. The car that he's driving is really not up to date and not all that fast. But he's making up a tremendous difference, and ironically, people don't notice it, but he's another Paul Tracy.
Montermini there with car 50. Al Unser Jr. in front of him is car 3. Montermini's car appears to be broken on the right front side.
Well, you know, we saw that a lot of cars had touching going down there. He could easily have a bent wing. It's a little hard to tell right now, but you can just bet a lot of the cars got a lot of bump. But you know, remember what I said, it's so important to these guys to try to gain at the early start, because when they're all bunched up, sometimes they can pick up 3 or 4 at a time.
We could be green on the next lap. We are still waiting for the signal from the starter. Let me run down the top 10 as we're under full course yellow. There's Goodyear, followed by Ray Hall, Paul Tracy, Nigel Mansell, Al Unser Jr., and Andrea Montermini driving very well. Raul Boisel is standing 7th. Teo Fabi is 8th. Stefan Johansson is 9th. And Emerson Fittipaldi rounds out the top 10. A big story here. Fittipaldi, you'll see him in just a minute. Car 4 is 2nd in the point standings behind Nigel Mansell coming here to Vancouver. We're going to have a look at Montermini's minor accident here, see what happened to the front end. Watch him there, just inside Al Jr.
Now, it looks like he just touched the wall. Little Al squeezed him down, not little Al's fault. Montermini was kind of poking his nose in where I can't see right there. And there's what you see that's happened. He's got less front wing. Now, that isn't a total wipeout, but that piece is going to fall off. It's a question now is whether CART is going to call him in for safety reasons, because that part of the wing will definitely fall off before this race is over.
We are about to go back to racing as they complete lap 6 here in Vancouver. Only 2 have been under the green. We're looking for the starter signal. Montermini right now, car 50 in the number 6 position. Scott Goodyear is the leader. They've raced 2 laps. They've gone through 4 under a full course yellow. Stay with us. We're about to go back racing. We'll return to Vancouver right after this. As we come back to Vancouver, the cars on lap 7, the 5th under a full course yellow. When they come by the start-finish line, they will receive the green flag this time, and the field will be back racing. It was a field of 26, only 22 cars still running. Out of the race, Robbie Gordon, Ari Lyondike, Olivier Griard, and Scott Brayton. Here's that great nose cam shot. Now we look back from Scott Goodyear's car to Bobby Rahall's. That nose cam is on the front of Rahall's car. Rahal is currently 2nd behind Scott Goodyear. There's Scott Goodyear, followed by Bobby Rahal, Paul Tracy, Nigel Mansell, Al Unser Jr., and Andrea Montermini. Down through the start-finish area, it's a green flag, and they're racing in Vancouver. Scott Goodyear on the Pacific Boulevard. Scott Goodyear pursued by Bobby Rahal, Paul Tracy, Nigel Mansell, and Al Unser Jr. Raul Boisel comes through the hairpin. It's Rahal all over Scott Goodyear.
Now he's able to stay up there a lot closer now because he already knows what the track is like. They've already run a couple of fast laps, so they have a good idea of what it feels like, so they're a lot closer bunched now.
The leader, Bobby Unser, Scott Goodyear, is driving a Lola chassis with a Ford engine. Bobby Rahal and Paul Tracy right behind him are Chevrolet powered. This is going to be very, very interesting.
Well, we can always gauge the Lola against a Lola Chevy against a Lola Ford. We can also look at a Lola against a Penske. Remember, the Penske chassis have been the best this year. Scott Goodyear right there's in a Lola. There's a Lola right behind. One is a Ford. There's Scott Goodyear. Rahal's in a Chevy. And then there's a Chevy behind, but it's in a Penske car with Tracy.
Down on down to Pacific Boulevard. The Fords are stronger on the straightaway. Looking back from Bobby Rahal to Paul Tracy. Tracy does not make a pass. Tracy remains third as we look back from Bobby Rahal.
Now that was an almost attempt pass on Tracy's part. He really got in there deep and all of a sudden changed his mind and said, boy, I better not do this one right now.
Out of the tunnel on the north side of BC Place Stadium, Scott Goodyear, Bobby Rahal, Paul Tracy, Nigel Mansell, Al Unser Jr. now running in the number 5 position.
Now, another thing to keep in mind is we've had 7 laps under yellow. Well, not 7, actually about 5 or 6 laps under yellow, but it helped the fuel mileage problem that they were going to have today. There's somebody into the pits.
Scott Goodyear, and look at this, Paul Tracy now beginning to make a move on Bobby Rahal in second place. Down Pacific Boulevard, that's Rahal, followed by Paul Tracy, Nigel Mansell, and Al Unser Jr. Now Tracy comes right up on the heels of Bobby Rahal, does not make the pass.
No, but he sure is getting close. He's letting Rahal know. Now, what I started to say is all the guys had to really be conservative and the short shift as the race started. But after the yellow flag, that's to get fuel mileage now, but after the yellow flag, their mileage can be a lot better. They have less laps to run under full power. So the guys will start riching their engines up with fuel, which means they make more horsepower. Now, Scott Goodyear, for example, is still leading it. He's not running away with it, so I'm sure that Derek Walker is telling him, there's Rahal locking up his right front brake, and look.
Paul Tracy has gone by Bobby Rahal. It's Canadians running first and second through the start-finish area. Goodyear, Tracy, Rahal, Mansell, and Al Unser Jr. Paul Tracy driving for Roger Penske, and the Penske Chevrolet has moved into second place through the hairpin turn. Goodyear, Tracy, and Bobby Rahal. Brilliant driving by Paul Tracy.
Now watch this. There's the right front tire locking up on Rahal's car. That means he loses a little bit of his braking because that tire no longer brakes. There's Tracy. He saw it. He went for the inside, came off, almost pinched Rahal into the other turn right there, which was not Tracy's fault. Rahal just didn't have a place to be right there.
Bobby Rahal, the defending PPG points champion, tried to design his own car this year. Now let's look at the pass as we look back. And he goes to the right of Rahal.
And what Tracy can see there is the smoke coming off of Rahal's tire, and he says, hey, there's a lame duck. I've got to go for it.
So Canadians running first and second, Scott Goodyear, Paul Tracy. There's Bobby Rahal. I was talking about Rahal and Carl Hogan designing their own chassis, and it cost them a starting position in this year's Indianapolis 500.
That plus many millions of dollars because it turned out to be a big failure, and they ended up having to buy Lola cars anyway.
Al Unser Jr. car 3 is trying to make a move on Nigel Mansell and does not get, yes! Al Unser Jr. has passed Nigel Mansell.
Now that's one of the hardest places to make a pass. I don't think we even saw one there last year. In fact, at this racetrack, I've never seen one like that on the outside. It's a place where Nigel really can't see Little Al, and Little Al just went right by before he even knew what was going on.
Al Unser Jr. won here in 1990. He is followed by Mansell, and Raul Boisel is now up into 6th place. The Brazilian driving so well. Bobby Rahal is running 3rd. There's the leader, Scott Goodyear, followed by Paul Tracy.
Remember, we said early on, it's the turnaround race, we think, for Scott Goodyear right there going by in the number 2 car, and Little Al. Both of them right here is Little Al. These guys are quicker at this race today than they've been all year.
Here is the pass. Al Unser Jr., look at that. Mansell showing a little class, letting him go by there.
Well, there's no reason for Mansell to do that. That was the strangest thing I ever saw. Mansell is not down a lap, and the only time you usually do that is when you're down a lap. But Mansell, of course, is a very smart and very good race driver.
Well, we've had a good start here in Vancouver. Some exciting racing. You're watching live coverage of the 1993 Molson Indy Vancouver on Sports Weekend. In Vancouver, Paul Tracy has just passed Scott Goodyear to take the lead.
And Rahal, too, went by.
There's Tracy, Rahal, and Goodyear.
What happened was he got underneath it. Paul Tracy got underneath Scott Goodyear, and Rahal went right on by in that turn 10.
So it's Paul Tracy, followed by Bobby Rahal, Scott Goodyear, and Al Unser Jr. The top 4 here in Vancouver. Car 19, Johnny Unser, is not a factor. The race leader, car 12, is Paul Tracy. Bobby Rahal is second. There is the third place car, Scott Goodyear, and he's about to be passed by Al Unser Jr.
Now there's something wrong with Scott Goodyear. He's slowing down too much. He got passed by 2 cars. I got awfully excited there. Boy, I haven't seen passing like that in a long time. But he started slowing down for some reason. I thought he must have a problem.
All right, let's have a look at the pass. Goodyear car 2. Tracy goes by Goodyear, and Rahal's behind them.
And you see Tracy moves Goodyear way out too wide. You can see Scott picking up all the trash, all the dirt on his tires.
Bobby Rahal has just gone ahead of Paul Tracy.
On the outside in turn 1, on the outside, Brian.
You are not supposed to be able to pass there. Here's where you're supposed to pass. Bobby Rahal. Bobby Rahal is now leading Paul Tracy as we look back from Rahal's car to the charging Tracy. Lead changes by the second in Vancouver. It has been an outstanding start to this Molson Indy. So it's now Bobby Rahal. Paul Tracy is second. Scott Goodyear, who started from the pole and led for the first 8.5 laps, now falling back badly. We suspect mechanical problems.
We haven't seen this many good passes if we total up all the years we were here. On a road race course, you just don't pass fast cars on the outsides of the turn. But that's what we've seen a lot of so far. There's Rahal. There's Tracy right behind him.
Bobby Rahal, the race leader, comes down Pacific Boulevard. Al Unser Jr. has now moved into third place ahead of Scott Goodyear. Nigel Mansell is running fourth. Raul Boisel is running fifth. Car 3, Al Unser Jr. Car 2, Scott Goodyear. And car 5, Nigel Mansell. They are second, third, and fourth, or third, fourth, and fifth, respectively. We're on board now with Scott Goodyear. Goodyear has fallen back. The race leader there is car 1, Bobby Rahal. Here is the pass. Rahal going by Paul Tracy right at the end of the pits. Amazing pass.
This is the fastest turn on the racetrack, a place where the cars have to go back out to the wall, which is on our left there, and Rahal just went by on the outside.
Car 15 is Hiro Mashusta. Mashusta is about to go a lap down to the race leader, Bobby Rahal. Running down the top 10, Rahal, Tracy. On board now, the nose cam, great shot. Bobby Rahal gets by Mashusta, who's now a lap down. There's Paul Tracy, he is second. It's Rahal, Tracy, Al Unser Jr., Scott Goodyear is fourth. Nigel Mansell is fifth. Raul Boisel is sixth. Bobby is seventh. Johansson is eighth. Fittipaldi is ninth. Mario Andretti is now 10th. Ross Bentley from British Columbia is running 14th.
There's Nigel Mansell, who obviously is going to need some adjustments when he comes into the pit. Nigel has not been fast. It's the white number 5 there. Not been fast. Scott Goodyear is right in front of Nigel. Now he's falling back a little bit. Both of them seem to be having maybe even a similar problem. Both of them are in lowlands.
Well, it's interesting, on board with Nigel Mansell through the start-finish area. Mansell currently trailing Bobby Rahal, Paul Tracy, Al Unser Jr., and that's Scott Goodyear right in front of him. Mansell, tremendous success on the short ovals and the super ovals, has won only once on a road course. That was the season opener in Australia. Great area to pass here, but he can't do it. That's Mashusta. Mashusta about to go a lap down now on Mansell.
Hiro Mashusta gets passed a lot quicker than what he is. Little Al would have normally passed him in one turn somewhere without any problem. So Mashusta's running good, even though he's getting a lap down.
Well, a little breakup coming up as we go under the tunnel here. The satellite transmission, we have trouble with that when they go under the bridges or the tunnels. On board with Nigel Mansell. We're early on in Vancouver. Mansell is running fifth. The race leader is Bobby Rahal, followed by Paul Tracy, Al Unser Jr., and Scott Goodyear. And right now, let's go down to Sally Larkin.
And I'm with Tom Wartz, who's the chief mechanic for Nigel Mansell, and we had heard that Nigel was loose, that his car was loose.
Yeah, well, you know, we're not right at this moment. We're just letting the race take its own pace right now, and we'll see what happens when it gets closer towards the pit stop.
Okay, so you're going to keep him out there even though it's loose, and when you bring it in, you'll make some adjustments?
Yeah, we'll ask him then, you know, just before the stop, and see how it settles down a little bit first, and then we'll make the decision then.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Let's go to Ken Daniels.
Well, Sally, here in Scott Goodyear's pit, perhaps there are mechanical problems. They're not sure because they think there are problems with the radio communication because so far Scott Goodyear hasn't radioed in. They're trying to get him. They can't. Brian?
Boy, you know, Brian, I just want to mention, radios are a problem. They just never seem to work. Every time they go underneath that tunnel, their radios quit just like our transmissions do also.
Ross Bentley has moved up to 13th place. That's Teo Fabi in the yellow car 8. He is running 7th. The leader is Bobby Rahal, followed by Paul Tracy, Al Unser Jr., Scott Goodyear, and Nigel Mansell will return to Vancouver right after this. As we come back to Vancouver, it's Bobby Rahal leading Paul Tracy, Al Unser Jr., Scott Goodyear, and Nigel Mansell. And Bobby Unser, as you said, you have never seen so much exciting passing.
Well, they've settled back down now, but boy, I'll tell you what, for the first 10, 15 laps of this race, in all the years that I've been here, I've never seen that much passing if we totaled it all up in passing on the outside. So it shows that the guys like, for example, right now do have a lot of reserve left.
There's the leader, Bobby Rahal, through 22 of 102 laps. Tracy's in trouble. Paul Tracy is in trouble. Al Unser Jr. has gone by. Car 12 is Paul Tracy. The Penske Chevrolet, something is wrong. He has slowed down. Let's see if he can get around. Scott Goodyear is now ahead of Tracy, so Tracy is running 5th. Mansell passes him. It looks like the day is done for Paul Tracy.
Well, Tracy's out. He isn't even going to make it back to the pits the way it looks. He almost quit in that corner, so he obviously has a very serious mechanical problem. Now, the guys coming up behind we get a little bit worried about because they don't know necessarily that he's having a problem. He's still limping along. He's still under power, but not very much power.
Well, just about to enter the tunnel on the north side of BC Place Stadium. That is where Paul Tracy's day appears to end.
Now, this is the dangerous place. Here's where we get under the tunnel in the dark. Paul should get, there he is. He's getting off the road a little bit better. That's a very dangerous place to be because the guys just can't see when they go from the light to the dark that well.
So Paul Tracy, 3rd in the IndyCar standings with 4 victories, including last week at Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, and of course the Molson Indy in Toronto, appears to be through for the day in Vancouver. There is Teo Fabi 7th, pursued by Emerson Fittipaldi. That is Tracy's teammate. Fittipaldi in car 4 is in the number 8 position. The race leader is Bobby Rahal. Al Unser Jr. is now 2nd. Scott Goodyear is 3rd. Nigel Mansell is 4th. Boycell is 5th. Johansson is 6th, and Paul Tracy is out of this race.
And he brings out a yellow flag. Now, it's a yellow flag all the way around with a vehicle on the track. So, this is going to bring around a lot of pit stops, and here they come right now.
It's a full course yellow. The race leader, Bobby Rahal, is in. Also, Al Unser Jr., who's running 2nd. Back out, having now completed 24 laps. They're all coming in for fuel. Al Jr. is right behind them. So they pit for fuel on lap 24. This is a 102-lap race. There's the race leader, Rahal, followed by Al Unser Jr.
You know, it's like, this business is something like monkey see, monkey do. The leader comes in. This makes it a 3 pit stop race, incidentally. If we don't have a lot of yellows, assuming it's the rest green, but it's like monkey see, monkey do. The leader comes in, everybody basically has to do the same thing, so they'll stay in the same sequence. Now, getting caught behind here, as you can see how hard it is to pass sometimes, nobody would want to come from the back to the front. It's easier to stay in the front. Here is Paul Tracy, Roger Penske's ace in the hole, out of the race. Looks like a mechanical problem. Does not look or appear to have been an engine. Could be a transmission, though.
Paul Tracy's day is done. Stay with us. We'll return with live coverage of the 1993 Vancouver Molson Indy on Sports Weekend right after this. As we come back to Vancouver, you're on board with Scott Goodyear. Goodyear is actually now running 3rd. The graphic going to commercial had him 2nd. It's Bobby Rahal, followed by Al Unser Jr. Scott Goodyear is 3rd. Stefan Johansson is 4th. And out of the race, is Paul Tracy. Raul Boisel is a big story, Bobby Unser, running 5th. Emerson Fittipaldi, who started 10th, has now moved up to 6th place. Fabi is 7th, Mario Andretti is 8th, Danny Sullivan is 9th, and Nigel Mansell is 10th. Here they come out of the pits. Look at this. That's Fittipaldi going in, the 3rd car. The 1st car out is Ray Hall, followed by Al Unser Jr.
Well, it makes you think they need a traffic light in the pit sometimes. How these guys can do this, if you realize they really can't see off to the side or in back of them, how they miss each other sometimes is beyond me. Shows you why we have a speed limit in the pits.
All right, the speed limit 80 miles an hour in the pits. Let's go down to Sally Larvick. Sally?
And they have brought Paul Tracy's car in. We understand that it's an electrical problem, something to do with the battery. That's all we know for now, and that's the first thing that they check whenever they bring a car in the pit. And we can see that the side pod is off, and they are fooling around with the black box and the electrical system. So they think possibly they have a backup car right behind the pits. They think possibly that they can get him back out again as Paul Tracy waits in the car and waits for something to happen, hopefully to get back out on the track.
All right, Sally, a disappointing day for Paul Tracy. We're under a full course yellow here in Vancouver. And I wouldn't say it's been a great race, Bobby Unser, but it has been a strange race. Now, we're on lap 26. There have been 9 under a full course yellow.
There's Johnny Unser just limping around. He has some sort of mechanical problem also. Even though it hasn't been the best race, I think it's been extremely exciting. We've seen a lot of the guys change their game plans almost instantly because things are changing so fast. It's hard to even keep up with it.
26 cars started out of the race. Robbie Gordon, Ari Lyondike, Olivier Griard, Scott Brayton, Mark Smith. Johnny Unser is out of the race. And now we have Paul Tracy in the pits, not officially out of the race, but that's all for Johnny Unser here today. We're under a full course yellow in Vancouver on what has been a very strange afternoon when they were racing some great passing, Bobby.
Strange, yes, but you know, you just think about this alone. Look at Bobby Rahal leading the race. Bobby Rahal hasn't had a good race all year. As we mentioned earlier, he missed the race at Indianapolis because he was too slow. You look at right behind him, Little Al. Little Al hasn't had a good race hardly all year. And right now, he's just tough for nails. Both of them, for example, are in Lola Chevrolets, the new Chevy C engines.
Paul Tracy is still in the car directly in front of our broadcast booth. They're getting the backup car ready, but that's really a moot point. It will not come in. They're stripping material out of it, and they're going to put it into the race car. But even if they get that new material in, Bobby Unser, he'll be 2 or 3 laps down. Paul Tracy will not be a factor in 1993 in Vancouver.
But you got to remember, Paul Tracy's boss, Roger Penske, he's a racer. He'll put Tracy back in no matter what it takes to do it.
Now the starter is holding up his hand. We're getting the signal. It looks like 1 more lap. That's it. There you see the finger. 1 more lap under full course yellow, and this field will be racing again in Vancouver. This is a 102-lap race.
Now the reason the guys are zigzagging back, and there's Roger Penske, concerned, as he always is. The guys zigzag back and forth to take the trash. When they go slow, they pick up rubber from one, like from the Atlantic race, to these tires. It picks the rubber up like vulcanizing. So what they do is they scrub that rubber off, so when they go into the first turn after the yellow or the green flag, they have good adhesion.
Down through the hairpin, Bobby Rahal, Al Unser Jr., Scott Goodyear, and Stefan Johansson is now 4th. Now, Johansson's a big story because he was 3rd here last year. There is the race leader, 40-year-old from Dublin, Ohio, in a Lola Chevy V8C. Bobby Rahal is 24 career victories, the IndyCar champion last year, 1987 and 1986. His best finish here in Vancouver was in 1991 when he was 2nd to Michael Andretti.
Yes, and you know, you just look, there's Scott Goodyear still behind. Now remember, they should have made some adjustments to Scott's car. We didn't see the pits because all of them came into the pits at one time, so we couldn't follow all of them, but I reckon he could be a little bit faster right now too.
As the drivers complete lap 27 out of a scheduled 102, we're watching the starter. The green flag should come out, and we should be racing again in Vancouver. Bobby Rahal's the leader. R3 is Al Unser Jr. The pole sitter, Scott Goodyear, is 3rd. The green flag is waving, and they're racing again in Vancouver. Look at Al Unser Jr. does not get by Bobby Rahal. Rahal, Al Unser Jr., Goodyear, Johansson, and Boycell down the straightaway at 190 miles an hour.
It's good to see these two guys racing again. Guys, you know, when you don't see those two guys race each other hard all year, you kind of get to miss them. There's little Al right out of the back of Rahal's car. This is what Rahal sees in his mirrors.
Al Unser Jr. won the inaugural Vancouver Molson Indy. He's had troubles in 1993, as has Bobby Rahal, but they stand 1-2. In fact, the top three cars have had bad years. Rahal, Al Unser Jr., and Scott Goodyear. Paul Tracy is out of the race. Nigel Mansell is running way back in the number 10 position.
Coming down into turn 10, you can see little Al go to the right just for a second there. He started to think about passing Rahal right then and changed his mind. Now they're on the front straightaway, coming right by us. Here they go.
Both are Lola Chevs. Looking back from the race leader, Bobby Rahal. There's BC Place Stadium. They'll come down. Great area to pass right here as Unser is all over Rahal, but will not get by.
You can see sometimes the driver behind there, especially with this camera, he's going to do it. He thinks he's going to do it, and then he changes his mind right at the very last.
Looking ahead from Scott Goodyear to Al Unser Jr. Scott Goodyear is running third. Goodyear, who won in Michigan in 1992, second to Al Unser Jr. last year at the Indy 500, having a great afternoon.
Now remember, Scott Goodyear has a Ford, two Chevrolets and a Ford. All the same chassis right there, all Lola chassis. It's a good time for the Ford and Chevy people to see the difference.
And into the start-finish straightaway comes the race leader, Bobby Rahal. Al Unser Jr. getting ready to make a move, not able to do it. Down onto the straightaway. Watch for a passing situation at the end of this straight.
He's faking Rahal. He's worrying him. Rahal knows it. He knows that he'll fake him, and pretty soon he'll just zap one and attempt it. Now Rahal would do exactly the same thing to him.
All kinds of rumors that Al Unser Jr. will join Roger Penske. Penske would have a three-car team in 1994. Fittipaldi, Paul Tracy, and Al Unser Jr. Al Unser Jr. has had a disappointing year with Gallus. There's Bobby Rahal, the race leader. Bobby Unser, any inside information? What do you hear about the possibility of a three-car Penske team in 1994?
Well, I certainly hear the same rumors that you do, Brian. Unfortunately, I talked to my nephew, little Al, and he just seals up his lips and says, Uncle Bobby, I'm not talking. But I do have my deal made for next year.
On board with Scott Goodyear, he's third through the start-finish area as he pursues Al Unser Jr., who's second, and the race leader, Bobby Rahal. Outstanding camera work here in Vancouver. Here's the area to pass. Rahal. Bobby Rahal. Paul Tracy is back on the course, but is several laps down. Stay with us. We'll return with more live coverage of the 1993 Vancouver Molson Indy right after this. Welcome back to Vancouver through 33 laps. It's Bobby Rahal, Al Unser Jr. There's the two race leaders. Scott Goodyear is third, Johansson is fourth, and Raul Boycell is fifth. Down through the start-finish area comes Bobby Rahal. Now, Bobby Unser, let me ask you about fuel. Lap 34 is where they're racing. There's been one pit stop. This is a 102-lap race. What do you see happening?
Well, here's what could happen. If some of the teams, looks like it could be a three-stop race, but some of the teams could go to work and decide to cut their fuel back and start telling the drivers to short shift, and they could make it like 102 laps. The cars ought to quit right then and there. Now, if they have just one more yellow, they're certainly in the clear. Although I think right now that some of the guys at least are going to go for a two-stop race instead of a three-stop race and just really sweat it out to the very last.
Here's an update on Paul Tracy, Bobby. He is running several laps down in 18th place, and there's the problem.
Well, he had a fried alternator wire, which means he had an electrical short. You know, that makes some of the sprint car guys that run around the country wish that all these cars had magnetos in them like the old days and not all of this new electronics they have. Sometimes I think the racing would be better that way.
Bobby Rahal followed by Al Unser Jr. Bobby Rahal's best finishes this year, second at Long Beach in a race won by Paul Tracy, and he was third in another race won by Paul Tracy last week at Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. It's Bobby Rahal, Al Unser Jr., Scott Goodyear is third, Johansson is fourth, Boycell is fifth, Fittipaldi sixth, Bobby seventh, Mario Andretti eighth, Danny Sullivan ninth, Nigel Mansell is 10th, Ross Bentley from Coquitlam is running 13th.
We watched both of these guys, Bobby Rahal and Little Al, in their practice session this morning, and I never saw two happier drivers. I was standing around and talking to some people, and I said, hey, those guys are going to have a good race without mechanical problems today, because both of them came in early, said they're happy with their cars, and they were smiling.
Emerson Fittipaldi, Teo Fabi. There is Mario Andretti. Mario Andretti is running 8th. Fittipaldi, Fabi, Andretti. Followed by Danny Sullivan, who is 9th. Danny Sullivan just going through. And behind Sullivan, Nigel Mansell, who's 10th. Now there's Emerson Fittipaldi. He's 6th. Teo Fabi, Mario, Danny Sullivan, Nigel Mansell, rounding out the top 10.
Nemo is obviously really worried about his points race. He hasn't been charging the last several races as much as he normally is. Normally, Nemo is as hard a charger as you can ever find. But he's been playing a little bit conservative, which tells me that he's concerned more about winning the championship than about winning the individual races.
Bobby Rahal pursued by Al Unser Jr. Unser, the 31-year-old from Albuquerque, New Mexico, will not pass under braking. He has 18 career victories as the 1990 IndyCar champion. Now the look back from Rahal to Al Jr.
This will really worry a guy like Rahal. Now Rahal is an old hard hand at it, but this would worry him a lot because little Al is never more than just out of his mirrors, and he just stays there. Now Rahal knows that he's like kind of like a pet rattlesnake. He can bite and try to go by just about any time.
Well, Al Unser Jr.'s best finish this year is 4th in Phoenix. There's Scott Goodyear. And Scott is running 3rd. Goodyear sat on the pole here in Vancouver. There was one false start as Rahal jumped the gun. Now through the start-finish area comes Scott Goodyear. I'll tell you, when Goodyear won the pole yesterday, Jim O'Donnell, who actually started Mackenzie in racing, they'll be leaving racing after this year. O'Donnell and the Derek Walker crew were doing handstands down pit road.
Well, you know, it'll be sad to see Mackenzie out of racing in total because everybody has enjoyed them. They've done a lot for motor racing, and I'm sure the company has derived a lot for it. Most of all, we don't want to see Jim O'Donnell be leaving us either, you know.
Nigel Mansell is car 5. Mansell is running 10th. There's the race leader, Rahal, followed by Al Unser Jr. And very quickly, let's go down to Ken Daniels.
So far, a great day for Al Unser Jr. Rick Gallis short shifting early because of fuel concerns. Any concerns now about that?
Well, there's always a concern because those two guys are running hard, so we're just going to keep doing what we're doing.
You had it set up, I guess, perfectly through practice this morning, you felt?
Well, Al's worked real hard with the race car, so we're pretty excited about where we are right now.
Okay, Rick Gallis, thank you. Brian?
Bobby Rahal and Al Unser Jr. And Al Unser Jr. again, Bobby, content to simply toy with Bobby Rahal.
Well, he is. You know, we look at one lap and he looks like he's toying with him. Then we look at the next lap and we see that he just got a little bit closer. So maybe what he thinks is that the Rahal is getting over too lax. Like if Rahal tries to back off a little bit, he runs at him a little bit harder. That keeps the guy using more fuel and running harder and more apt to make a mistake.
You're watching live coverage of the 1993 Molson Indy Vancouver. It's Bobby Rahal, followed by Al Unser Jr. Here's Scott Goodyear. He is running 3rd.
And welcome back to this very exciting race. And with me is the co-owner of Bobby Rahal's team, Carl Hogan. And Carl, we met yesterday, and we said that we didn't expect to find you in this position because you haven't been in this position a while, and it holds true today. The car is working very well.
Yeah, it's nice to be running up front again, and the car's doing well, and Bobby's doing a super job. And so far, everything's going just according to textbook plan.
Any concerns at all?
Just Al Unser Jr. right now.
And he's a big concern. Thank you very much, Carl Hogan. Back up to you, Brian.
He should be concerned with Al Unser Jr. That's Mario Andretti pursuing Teo Fabi. Fabi is 7th. Andretti is 8th. Followed by Danny Sullivan there in the Molson car 7, who is 9th. And Nigel Mansell, they say there's nothing really seriously wrong with the car. Mansell, the points leader, is having a terrible day, running 10th. The big news, if you're just joining us, Paul Tracy is running. But Tracy was running near the front when he had an electrical problem, and Tracy will not be a factor here in Vancouver as he's now 4 laps down. And on the course,
Jim Vassar.
That's Jimmy Vassar.
Jimmy Vassar out. Can't tell why, but he's got some smoke coming out of the front of the car. He waves off the back of the engine just normal. There he is. He obviously hit the wall or another car, lost his left front, lost his steering. Now he's going down into the tire barriers, of which that isn't too serious. He's pretty lucky on that one.
It will not bring out, at least yet, a full course yellow. We've had a lot of yellow here in Vancouver this afternoon. Through 42 of 102 laps, Bobby Rahal, car 1, is the race leader. Al Unser Jr. is second. Goodyear is third. Johansson is fourth. And Boycell is fifth. What a story this would be if Bobby Rahal were able to win in Vancouver.
Well, he's certainly trying hard, but little Al isn't letting up on him. And every time, the best I can tell, the Rahal slows down just a little bit. Little Al just pressures him that much harder. So it would appear that little Al just has a good pace, and he's going to keep Rahal really honest that way. That definitely makes for better racing, Brian.
That's Hiro Mashusta, and he is about to be passed by Rahal, and he'll go 2 laps down. Mashusta is running 14th.
Now there's where a guy really hates to catch a lap car. In the 2 chicanes, you can see Rahal is helpless. Well, it's yellow right there, so that's saving him. But when they catch a lap car like that, there's no way to get around a guy in the chicanes.
Is that what Chip Ganassi was talking about earlier? The inexperienced drivers, in effect, messing it up for the good ones.
Yes, but Machusta's really not an inexperienced one, but that's exactly what Chip was talking about. And of course, like we said, Chip's car should have been closer to the front there.
Now it's a full course yellow, just as Al Unser Jr. was about to pass Bobby Rahal. Out went the full course yellow. Unbelievable.
I think that Rahal and little Al both knew that was going to happen. I think even this little Al said, hey, big boy, I'm still here, you know.
I'll tell you, it's been a different afternoon here in Vancouver. Great conditions, exciting racing. We'll return live right after this. That is the Lola Chev of Jimmy Vassar. Vassar is out of this race, prompting a full course yellow. Top of the screen, Bobby Unser.
There's Jimmy Vassar. You can already see him getting too close to the wall right there. He just barely clipped it. He's in the yellow car right there. And then he lost his right front, which obviously, or excuse me, his left front. I'm sorry, it's on my right. The left front, which caused him to lose his steering. He's out of the race from that.
Nigel Mansell is a big story. The points leader is only 10th. We're on board with Mansell under a full course yellow. And he looks ahead to Danny Sullivan's Lola Ford. And boy, there's another one, Marco Greco from Sao Paulo, Brazil. Greco drops out of the race. They're dropping like flies here in Vancouver now.
Now, this doesn't seem to have any reason to it. He has some sort of a mechanical problem, maybe a fuel pickup problem, but he's not been in an accident or anything like that as far as we can tell. But he's definitely going to get hooked up and towed back to the pits because he is without power, but it's going to help keep the track yellow a little bit longer. Now, this is definitely going to put this race into a 2-stop race. It should do it. The fuel mileage will not be a factor. The drivers will ultimately turn up their fuel consumption. Deals which they can do on board the cars, which gives them more power, which makes the better race for all of us to watch.
Well, this is lap 45 out of a scheduled 102. And Pat Gonzalez tells me, Mike Dennis signals here, 11 or 12 laps now under the full course yellow. Boy, it seems like a lot more than that, Bob.
Well, it does seem like a lot because it takes so long to get around under yellow flag lap, and the racing that we've been seeing today has just been astronomically good.
Al Unser Jr. is car 3. I tell you, we need a breather. There's Paul Tracy, car 12. Paul is back in the race, but is in 17th position. And that is a Penske Chevrolet coming into the pits of Paul Tracy, and he may indeed be through for the afternoon.
Penske's theory is keep running as long as you can. He's a racer. He realizes that he's tearing up an engine or wearing one out right now, but he doesn't care. He says he owes it to the sponsors. He owes it to everybody, to the fans that are here at the racetrack. keep on racing.
All right, the starter has just held up his hand and held up the one finger sign. Tracy is back into this race, now running 18th. So Paul Tracy is 4 laps down. Electrical problems earlier when he was running near the top. So they'll be racing when they come around again. Bobby Rahal, Al Unser Jr., and Scott Goodyear, the top 3. Paul Tracy, 3rd in the point standings with 4 victories. Had high hopes coming here to Vancouver. It's been a disappointing day, but as Bobby Unser says, he is simply out there to drive and for Roger Penske to gain some experience.
You know, Roger won't want him out there just loafing either. That isn't Penske's way. He's going to tell him, go fast, race the guys, don't cause any problems, and don't cause the leaders to deviate from what they're doing. Other than that, go as fast as you can go.
There's the race leader, car 1, the defending Indy champion, Bobby Rahal, followed by Al Unser Jr. Mashusta is in there, but Mashusta is running 13th. That is 2 laps down. That is car 15. There is car 2. That is Scott Goodyear. Goodyear is 3rd. Stefan Johansson is 4th. And Raul Boesel is 5th.
The top 11 cars are still in the same lap. Where could you find a better race than this so far? We're almost halfway into it.
There's Johansson, followed by Boesel. Let me run down the top 5. There's Bobby Rahal, Al Unser Jr., Scott Goodyear, Johansson, and Boesel. And as they come through the start-finish area, the green flag is out, and they're racing in Vancouver.
Rahal and Little Al still on his tail. Scott Goodyear didn't pick up the pace good that time. Boesel is the one that's trying to move up right there. There's Rahal, Little Al, Scott Goodyear, and right behind him is Stefan Johansson, an ex-Formula 1 driver, guy that came from Formula 1 in the AMAX car there. Really a good race driver too, Brian.
Well, Johansson in a Penske Chevrolet. He was on the podium, 3rd here 1 year ago. Stefan Johansson absolutely loves Vancouver. Bobby Rahal, Al Unser Jr., Scott Goodyear. There's Stefan Johansson. And right behind him, the yellow car driven by Raul Boesel. Boesel with a Lola Ford combination. And I'll tell you, Boesel, just coming into your screen now, has been a big success story in 1993.
You know, he really has. Ironically, you can't look at the sheet sometime and say that, hey, this guy's unbeatable or been the fastest thing, but he's been the hardest charging guy probably all year. If you took Tracy out of the picture and you took Mansell out of the picture, my pick for all year would have been Boesel.
Into the hairpin at the end of Pacific goes race leader Bobby Rahal, Al Unser Jr., and Scott Goodyear, the top 3.
Almost every time they go in there, you'll see Little Al in different positions. What he does is he wants to confuse Rahal. Let Rahal know he may try it on the outside, he may try it on the inside. And remember, he did that really fancy pass on the outside of Mansell earlier, so there may be even a pass there that we don't know about.
Here's an interesting bit of trivia. This is the 4th year for Vancouver. The previous 3 winners, Al Unser Jr. in 90, Michael Andretti in 91 and 92, had all won Toronto prior to Vancouver. That situation will not be repeated in 1993, as the Toronto winner Paul Tracy is several laps down with electrical trouble.
We sure thought that was an omen before the race, though, Brian, because you and I were talking about it.
I thought another omen was that Tracy had come into Vancouver off a win.
There's Ross Bentley sitting there, dead. Something has happened, can't tell for sure yet. Just at one of the check. Yeah, the car is dead, not Ross Bentley. I didn't mean Ross was dead there, really, but the car is dead. I get talking so fast sometimes I get it mixed up here.
All right, Ross Bentley, a British Columbia driver. Ross driving for Dale Coyne with a Lola Chev, was running around a respectable 12th, and he's out of this race. Bobby Rahal, as we look back to Al Unser Jr. Rahal is the race leader across the start-finish line. You saw it flash on the screen, down at 190 miles an hour on the Pacific. Al Unser Jr. seems to be falling back just a bit, Bob.
Yes, he does. And, of course, this camera shot, now watch as he comes up. Now, that isn't as close as he normally is getting into that turn. They always tighten up in the tight turn. They always loosen up in the straightaways. But Little Al could just be taking a little breather for himself, too.
You're watching live coverage of the 1993 Molson Indy Vancouver. It's Rahal, Unser, and Scott Goodyear. Back to Vancouver. Car 3 is Al Unser Jr. The race leader is Car 1, Bobby Rahal. As they come through the start-finish area with Scott Goodyear third, they have now completed 51 of 102 laps in Vancouver. Bobby Rahal, Al Unser Jr., Scott Goodyear, Stefan Johansson, and Raul Boisel rounding out the top 5.
Now, all of these guys are still on the same lap. In fact, 11 of the cars are all still on the same lap. So we're going to see some good racing for a long time. Now, we watch these guys with game planning. Little Al is back up on Rahal. Scott Goodyear falls back just a little bit. He comes back up on Little Al. They're just sitting there making fuel mileage now, playing each other out because they realize a knockdown and drag out isn't going to prove anything right almost halfway in the race. And we are just pretty close, or not too far from halfway right now.
We're exactly halfway right now. 26 cars started. Out of the race, Griard, Lyondike, Brayton, Gordon, Johnny Unser, Smith, Vassar, Greco, the outstanding Italian driver Montermini. Scott Goodyear having some troubles. He's third there.
Boy, you can watch him get into that turn. That was the number 10 turn where the guys are locking their brakes. He lost it just for a bit, and anytime you see a driver let go of that steering wheel and get a new hold on it, he's usually in trouble, but Scott saved her that time.
That's where he lost the lead earlier in the race. Scott Goodyear, pursued by Stefan Johansson, who is fourth. Also out of this race is Ross Bentley. Let's have a look at that again, Bobby. Look, he lets go of the wheel.
Now watch, not quite yet. There he is. There he let go of it. Look at him. Just look at there. His right hand, you can see, is 2 or 3 times with his right hand, once with the left hand. There's where he got past right earlier in the day. Look at him right now. Now, it's very few times in my life. These cars steer so fast, the steerings are so sensitive, that I've ever seen a guy let go of a steering wheel and still save it. So you have to take your hat off to that guy.
And I'll tell you, we have to take our hat off to our CBC technical and production people for a great job here in Vancouver. Scott Goodyear crosses the finish line, running third as we go down to Sally Larman.
And we are in Nigel Mansell's pit, and an update. Nigel's been very quiet over the radio, so we have conflicting reports as to what the problem is. We understand, however, that what is definite is that he has a huge oversteer. And so when they bring him into the pit, they're going to do either one of two things. They're going to put in a larger wicker than what he has, or they're going to fool around with the tire pressure. So either way, Nigel Mansell does have a problem, although he's not communicating that much with his team. So we'll have to see what happens on the next pit stop as to what they do.
All right, Sally, Bobby, some thoughts on that?
Well, some thoughts on the wicker, Bill, they're talking about is the little thing, the little tab on the rear wing, which makes the rear wing work a whole lot harder, really plant the rear end of the car into the ground. Now, that means that they made a gigantic mistake in their setup for the race, because none of the cars that you see up in front of the race ever have to make changes that big, and especially on a road circuit, Brian.
Scott Goodyear is running third. Johansson is fourth. Boisel is fifth. Here's a big story. Emerson Fittipaldi is now sixth. Bobby is seventh. Mario Andretti is eighth. Danny Sullivan is ninth. And we just heard Sally. There's Boisel. There is Emerson Fittipaldi. Now Fittipaldi is going to make a move on Boisel. He could go into fifth place. Watch out for Fittipaldi.
Emo's a hard charger. You know, another thing I would need to mention about him, there isn't a driver in this race that is in as good a physical shape as Emerson Fittipaldi. He works out every week, every minute that he has. This guy is like what I'd call a modern-day Tarzan.
Well, he's the second oldest driver on the circuit to Mario Andretti, a two-time world champion, an IndyCar champion as he pursues Raul Boisel.
He's one of these guys that if he gets to running slow in a race, you never say that Emo's tired, because as long as I've known the guy, he hasn't been tired.
We talked about Brazilians in the opening. Raul Boisel is fifth. Emerson Fittipaldi is sixth as they come across the start-finish area. Ayrton Senna, of course, so brilliant in Formula One. Fittipaldi, one of two drivers, the other being Mario Andretti, to win both an F1 World Championship and an IndyCar title. Mansell is trying to become the first to do it in back-to-back years, but Mansell is down in the number 10 position.
Boisel, of course, drives for Dick Simon, who is an American car owner, as well as Roger Penske. Both of those are, but a very small car owner compared to Roger Penske. Simon is a guy that you normally don't expect to have super good cars. And here Boisel's driving for him, and this year they've been on the top of the ladder lots of times.
Race leader Bobby Rahal. Rahal now appears to be widening his lead over Al Unser Jr. Al keeps coming up to him at the end of the straightaway, and then Rahal will pull away on the north side. You see, as we look back, he now begins to pull away from Al Unser Jr. on the north side of BC Place Stadium. Live from Vancouver, you're watching coverage of the 1993 Molson Indy Vancouver on Sports Weekend. On lap 58, out of a scheduled 102, Nigel Mansell pursuing Mario Andretti. Mansell is car 5. Mansell is now 9th. Andretti is 8th. Danny Sullivan has dropped down to 10th. There's Nigel Mansell, followed by Danny Sullivan.
Now, we haven't seen Mansell run this slow all year. Mansell is having the worst day I've seen him have. He's let guys pass him relatively easy. Has not been charging. Obviously, he's not handling good, but I've never seen him miss this much with his car setup before, Brian.
Well, I tell you, it's interesting. Nigel Mansell has 4 victories. Only one, as we look at Mansell, is on a road course. A Formula One driver you would expect to be devastating on road courses. He won the season opener in Australia, then won on a short oval in Milwaukee, a super oval at Michigan, and on a short oval in New Hampshire. Now, on board with Nigel Mansell. Mansell is currently 9th and pursuing teammate Mario Andretti just in front of him. Now back to the race leader Bobby Rahal as he looks back to Al Unser Jr. They both go by Mashusta. Al Unser Jr. is all over Bobby Rahal.
Yeah, and you can see the little Al just waited for Mashusta to be there, and then he just ran up and just worried Bobby Rahal all to death. Now, whether he was going to take a pass if he could get it easy, but he probably wasn't going to press the issue that bad. Now he's just running up on him right there. Not going to pass him right there, but he's just keeping Bobby Rahal on the ball.
You are witnessing a couple of great road racers playing a game of cat and mouse. Unser saying, I'll take you up. Rahal saying, fine, I know you're there. You're not bothering me.
One of them, you know, Rahal could do a defensive thing in the front without ever trying to chop or float or move over or block little Al. He can speed it up. He can slow it down. He can do everything to mess little Al up like that. Keep his brain wondering, well, little Al is doing the same thing to him. There is more thinking going on in those 2 race cars than you would ever believe.
I'll tell you, there's a lot of thinking going up here in the booth as the race leader, Bobby Rahal, goes through the start-finish line, followed by Al Unser Jr. The thinking here in the booth as Al Jr., they both now will no, Al Jr. will not get by, and as they try to go by Jeff Wood and do go by Wood, Wood is 14th and now 3 laps down.
But just watch, every time that you see cars that are running together, catch traffic, you see the guy in the back really getting up close because he's looking for the opportunity where the lap car is going to mess up the guy in front of him.
There's Scott Goodyear. 16 is Stefan Johansson. Goodyear is running 3rd. Car 16, the Amex car of Johansson, is running 4th. Running 5th is Raul Boisel. I mentioned there's a lot of thinking going on up here in the booth. We're about at lap 60, and there's Scott Goodyear, who is running 3rd. Bobby Unser, you said earlier, probably a fuel stop around lap 64 or 65. Word from the truck is, our producer Doug Sellers, you're almost dead on.
Well, that's about when it should be. Now remember, the yellows mess us up on our figure a little bit too, so we're not always exactly right, but I think that people on television at home can be just like us. They can figure out all this stuff and see what the game plans are if they just follow through with our broadcast.
Hiro Mashusta. Mashusta is in 12th place and 2 laps down. There is Stefan Johansson. Johansson was 3rd here 1 year ago and currently runs 4th behind Bobby Rahal, Al Unser Jr., and Scott Goodyear.
Johansson right there in the 16 car drives for Tony Bentonhausen, a guy that was a very good race driver himself, but never worth a hoot on road circuit. He hired Johansson to replace him there and found out, hey, he likes him so much, better retire from racing and keep Johansson on all the time.
Stefan Johansson was 3rd last year in Detroit. Scott Goodyear across the start-finish area. There's the race leader, Bobby Rahal.
With his constant headache. With his constant headache right behind him.
Al Unser Jr. is running 2nd. It has been a wild afternoon here in southwestern British Columbia. Great day for racing. Bright sunshine, cool temperatures. It's been perfect all week.
You know, with a temperature this cool, it makes the engines and the turbochargers react and run so much better that the guys can play with their fuel curves in the cockpit. They have, a lot of the cars have telemetry on them, which means the computers transmit to the pits what is going on, like, for example, the fuel mileage on the racetrack. So the crews know what's going on. The drivers don't have to talk on the radio so much that way.
Car 4, Emerson Fittipaldi. He is followed by Fabi, Andretti, and Mansell. There's Boycell. Now Fittipaldi. Boycell is running 5th. There's Fabi. Mario Andretti's all over Fabi, and Nigel Mansell is all over Andretti. Down through the start-finish area. On board with Nigel Mansell. Nigel Mansell is running 9th. You're looking ahead to his teammate Mario Andretti, who is running 8th. At 190 miles an hour down Pacific, Mansell now says there are no problems with the car. He hopes to begin moving up through the field. Andretti almost running into Teo Fabi.
That shows you Mario isn't getting in too deep at all. It's Fabi that's going too slow getting into the turn. Mario wants to get in deep, which is normal to him. Fabi slows him up. Mario locks his front wheels up. That's sad, because once you do that, there's no more braking left. Once the tires quit rotating, the adhesion with the pavement goes down to almost zero, almost like in the water, Brian.
Well, the leaders are on lap 64, so we should see a flurry of activity in the pits. Bobby Rahal's crew has new tires out. Car 6 is Andretti, followed by Nigel Mansell. Danny Sullivan is now running 10th, and now some of the cars beginning to come into the pits. Here comes Emerson Fittipaldi. Also into the pits is Teo Fabi. Car 4, Emerson Fittipaldi almost screeches past his pit area. Fittipaldi was running 6th. There's Mario Andretti. Nigel Mansell, the race leader, Bobby Rahal, pursued by Al Unser Jr., who is 2nd. Rahal into the pits. Bobby Rahal, the race leader, is in for new tires. And let's go down to Sally Larvick.
And the team waits as Bobby Rahal makes his way down pit road. We understand that the only changes that are going to be made is to up the tire pressure a bit. They're very happy with this machine. They're taking on all 4 tires, refueling as Bobby Rahal waits. We're looking to see if any other changes are made to the car. None at all. They're very happy with its performance. Car is down off the jacks as they get the tires out of the way and wait for the refueling of the car, and Bobby Rahal is off.
Bobby Rahal is back, and he is running 4th. The new race leader is Al Unser Jr. Scott Goodyear is 2nd. Johansson is 3rd. Boycell is now 4th. And Bobby Rahal is 5th. So this is very, very interesting. And don't forget, Al Jr. still has to come in for new tires, possibly, but definitely fuel.
Now keep in mind, Rick Gallis has chosen a different game plan. He's left little Al out for at least 1 more lap. Now we'll see. He just went by another lap, so he's going to go 2 laps longer. There's little Al in front of the screen, leading the race now, but what he's trying to do is to put some distance on the racetrack on Rahal, because he's low on fuel. He's lighting go faster, and then when he comes back out with a full load, be just ahead of Bobby Rahal.
Sally?
And I'm down at Scott Goodyear's pit as they change all 4 tires, refueling the car. We're looking to see if they're making any changes. It doesn't look like they're doing anything at all as Scott Goodyear throws his water bottle over pit road. They're waiting for the fuel to be put into the car. He's down off the jacks, and Scott Goodyear is off. A very good pit stop for Scott.
Scott Goodyear was running 2nd, now goes out, and the race leader is still Al Unser Jr. Goodyear will drop down at least a couple of positions. Nigel Mansell is in. There's the race leader. Al Unser Jr. is coming in. Let's go down to Ken Daniels.
Danny Sullivan had some trouble getting away right beside Al Unser Jr.'s pit, and you were bang on. Just speaking with Rick Gallis, that was the strategy. Leave little Al out a little bit longer, and they were very intent on watching Bobby Rahal. The whole crew is over the wall, keeping an eye on him. But that was the strategy, and Rick Gallis said, we'll see what happens. Right now, 4 new tires and taking on full fuel. Tires come over the walls. The crew tries to get out of the way. Seems a little bit longer than usual, but little Al's away.
Now keep in mind, that crew, Brian, won the last 2 years, won the pit stop contest at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So the contest now is, there's Bobby Rahal. Is little Al going to be ahead? And he has to be. He's going to come out of the track ahead of Rahal. All of Rick Gallis's plans are going to work this time.
Scott Goodyear is back and racing. Mario Andretti is into the pits. Scott Goodyear is pursued by Paul Tracy. If you're just joining us, Tracy was near the top early, had electrical problems, is now running 4.5 laps down. It is not a factor. Al Unser Jr. under braking. Al Unser Jr., the race leader as we have it now. The computer, and we're trying to catch up, has Al Unser Jr. back in the lead.
Brian, it was all a matter of game planning on the pits. Little Al stayed out longer, gained speed or gained distance on Rahal when Rahal was in pitting. Little Al was light of fuel, came back out ahead of Rahal, and he's got quite a bit of distance right now.
Bobby Rahal is running second. Al Unser Jr. is the race leader. Scott Goodyear is running third. So Scott Goodyear is running third. There's Bobby Rahal running second as he looks ahead to the car of Hiro Mashusta.
For example, during that pit stop, during that planning that goes on in the pits, Little Al picked up a total of approximately 7.5 seconds, which included going from second to first place, Brian.
So running down the top 5 right now, Mashusta is not a factor. He is 3 laps down and running in the number 12 position. The race leader is Al Unser Jr. Bobby Rahal there in car 1 is second. Scott Goodyear is third. Rahal goes past Mashusta. If we can hang with that shot for a minute, that nose cam shot is, to me, one of the great camera shots in all of sport. Now we look back from Rahal's car. Bobby Rahal looking back to Scott Goodyear, who is third. Johansson is fourth. Mario Andretti is fifth. Nigel Mansell has moved up to sixth. Fittipaldi has dropped down to seventh. Teo Fabi is eighth. Boisel is way down at ninth. And Guerrero has moved into the number 10 position. So it's Al Unser Jr., followed by Bobby Rahal and Scott Goodyear. On board with Goodyear will return after this. Danny Sullivan, followed by Nigel Mansell and Emerson Fittipaldi. Mansell has just passed Danny Sullivan, but Sullivan is a lap down. Mansell is running sixth on lap 71 out of a scheduled 102. It's still Al Unser Jr. leading Bobby Rahal. Scott Goodyear is running third.
The race is just getting better after those pit stops. You know, the team planning today seems to me like it's been more important than a lot of the races I've seen for a long time, Brian, because you can actually see the thing unfold and the things happening in spite of what the drivers are doing. Of course, now remember, via the radio system, the guys talk to each other, and they should all have radios, at least for the pit. They know this stuff is going on.
On board with Danny Sullivan, looking ahead to Nigel Mansell. Mansell is running sixth. Sullivan is a lap down, running 11th. Now looking back from Mansell to Danny Sullivan. Mansell is running sixth. Fittipaldi is actually seventh. Danny Sullivan, Emerson Fittipaldi. Fittipaldi started 10th and is running seventh. The race leader in the big story is Al Unser Jr. Al Unser Jr., who won here in 1990, is the race leader. There he is, about to lap Hiro Mashusta, who is 12th and now 3 laps down. Al Unser Jr. has yet to win in 1993. Bobby Rahal is now dropping back, apparently losing ground on Al Unser Jr. We've got that great nose cam. Hopefully we'll be able to look ahead from it to Al Unser Jr. as he closes in. Scott Goodyear is running third. Stefan Johansson is running fourth. Mario Andretti is fifth. Nigel Mansell is sixth, and Emerson Fittipaldi is seventh.
Now, Little Al right there on the screen has been running all on his own. Remember, now he went from about 6.5 seconds to about 7.5 seconds ahead of Rahal. So he's running his own race. He's comfortable there, but he's still gaining ever so slightly on Rahal right now.
Al Unser Jr., the 31-year-old from Albuquerque, New Mexico, in a Lola Chev, driving for Rick Gallis. Actor Gene Hackman is here. Gene Hackman, we interviewed him yesterday, now putting money into that team. There's Bobby Rahal, who is second. Rahal now appears to be again charging on Al Unser Jr.
Well, little Al picked all of his distance up on Rahal in the pit stop. Rick Gallis is good, superb thinking. And so Rahal sits back there saying, hey, I'm not just going to sit here and wear my car out or burn my car down trying to make a deficit of about 7.5 seconds up on little Al. Honestly, on the racetrack, you see.
Scott Goodyear is running third, had the pole position. His second pole of the year, had the pole on the short oval in Phoenix. Goodyear is yet to win in what has been a very tough 1993. He was a surprise on the pole here. Bobby Rahal had a false start. Goodyear led for several laps, but lost it right there in quarter 10. There's Mario Andretti, who is running fifth and pursuing Stefan Johansson. Mario Andretti, who actually won that race in Phoenix. That's Guerrero, who is immediately in front of him, and Guerrero is 10th and a lap down.
Well, you can watch Mario go through that turn, just watch his hands working. And number 10 turn, right where we saw Scott Goodyear take his hands off the wheel and have to get new holes on the wheel. Mario was really working it hard down there, so that must be giving a lot of the guys problems.
Now that great shot, the nose cam on the nose of Bobby Rahal's car. Now this is turn number 10. Now let's hang on this down through the start-finish area. You'll see the start line flash across the screen right there. Now the left-hand turn
wide open.
And here's what it looks like at nearly 200 miles an hour.
Wide open still. Shifting down through the gear, still wide open. Watch for the hairpin. You start braking when it's in a turn. Turn downshift, here's the hairpin. That shows you how fast that hairpin comes at 190 miles an hour. And right away into the chicane. There's a lap car in front of Rahal. This is really what it looks like from the driver's standpoint because the camera's right on the nose. There's the camera. You can see it right in the middle of the nose on Rahal's car. No more than, what, 3 inches below his eye level, Brian. Isn't that something?
Bobby Rahal, who failed to qualify for the Indy 500, appears to have it all together here in Vancouver. It's Al Unser Jr., followed by Bobby Rahal, and this man, Scott Goodyear. As we come back to Vancouver, completing lap 77 is car 2, Paul Tracy. Tracy is running third. He is pursued, or excuse me, Scott Goodyear is running third. Car 2 is Goodyear. He is pursued by Paul Tracy. Tracy is 9 laps down. Tracy was a factor in this race early on, had electrical problems. Roger Penske, though, got him back out on the racetrack and said, I want you to run, even if you have no chance of winning. Al Unser Jr. has just lapped Raul Boesel. Boesel is 9th. Al Unser Jr. is the race leader. Al Unser Jr. has now completed 78 out of 102 laps. Bobby Unser, there's Bobby Rahal, who's second, reset the fuel situation for us.
Well, what happens right now, they made it to lap 65, which still keeps it at a 2-stop race. That was at Gamble, and the team thing I told you about, they're going to go to the end now. If they run 37 laps, they can make it right to 102, which is at the end of the race. So don't look for any more scheduled pit stops. If a guy comes in now, it's going to be unscheduled, and he's going to mean either lose the race or a worse position for him right now.
Bobby Rahal is now just 4 seconds behind Al Unser Jr.
Keep in mind the cars hold 40 gallons of fuel. I didn't explain that. They're getting approximately 1 lap per gallon at this rate. They can utilize a good, honest 37 gallons, counting the sloshing or whatever, and that's a little bit on the conservative side. So if you add 65 and 37, get you right to the end of the race.
Car 16 is Stefan Johansson. Stefan Johansson is running fourth for the Amex team and that Penske Chevrolet, and I was just checking.
It's a new Penske chassis, incidentally.
That is a new
That's
Penske
the only
chassis.
other Penske chassis running that's of a new origin.
As he's about to go past Jeff Wood. Jeff Wood is 13th and 2 laps down.
The Tony Bentonhausen car. Amex car. Very good car. They've had some really good races this year. Had a little bit bad luck on finishing sometimes, but Johansson has been fast a lot of times.
Johansson, a runner-up at the 1985 Canadian Grand Prix. It was won that year by Michele Alboreto. In Formula One, he drove for Ferrari, McLaren, Ligier, Toleman, Ken Tiro, AGS Footwork, and Onyx. So he's been around. Scott Goodyear. Goodyear is running third. Paul Tracy is 9 laps down, and Tracy's coming into the pits.
We thought he missed the turn there for a while. That's what you and I both thought. But he's coming into the pits for another pit stop, probably making some adjustments and learning about the car. He really has nothing to gain. Penske just wants him to stay out. It's good for him, and it's good for the crew to work together all day.
Paul Tracy came here to Vancouver off a win last weekend at Elkhart Lake. He will not win here. Al Unser Jr., car 3, is the race leader. Now by 5 seconds over Bobby Rahal. Scott Goodyear is third, followed by Johansson, Mario Andretti, Nigel Mansell, and Emerson Fittipaldi. We'll return live to Vancouver right after this. Al Unser Jr. is the race leader, having completed 82 laps. Al Unser Jr. comes into the hairpin turn. Wood goes off at the end of Pacific Boulevard. Al Unser Jr., the leader over Bobby Rahal, Scott Goodyear, Stefan Johansson, Mario Andretti, Nigel Mansell, and Emerson Fittipaldi is 7th. Look at this, Bobby. Only 1, 2, 3 cars on the same lap. Al Unser Jr., Bobby Rahal, and Scott Goodyear, as well as Johansson, has just gone on the same lap. Mario Andretti is a lap down and running 5th. He is followed by Mansell and Fittipaldi. There's Al Unser Jr., and boy, you predicted it last night. You said he is ripe for a victory here in Vancouver.
Well, for some reason or another, the race here at Vancouver seems to be the turning place for some of the drivers in the team. Another thing, it's at the end of the year, or getting near the end of the year. The drivers want to show the car owners, the sponsors, the race fans, that they're still good, even though they may have had problems during the year.
He goes by Roberto Guerrero, who is running 10th, and Guerrero is 2 laps down. There is Emerson Fittipaldi. Emerson Fittipaldi is 7th. Fittipaldi started 10th, but he is 7th and running well behind Al Unser Jr. He is followed by Teo Fabi, who is 8th, and Raul Boisel, who is 9th. Roger Penske having a rough day.
For some reason or another, Emo just hasn't been fast this whole race weekend. He hasn't practiced fast. He hasn't qualified fast. I thought he'd pick it up during the race, but he's finding something wrong at this track. He's not finding the car suitable to his liking.
It's been a tough day for the 2 powerhouse teams, Newman Haas and Roger Penske. Al Unser Jr. across the area of the start-finish line.
And you can see, Brian, he's not far behind from lapping Emo. In other words, he's just a little bit there, and he's going to get another one on Emo.
There's
Fittipaldi. Emerson. See, there's Emo just went by, and there's little Al. They're that close again.
Now, Teo Fabi is running 8th. And Emerson Fittipaldi's about to lap him. There's car 1. Bobby Rahal is 2nd, and he now appears to have lost ground to Al Unser Jr. He is 7.5 seconds back, so he's lost 3 seconds.
There are times, Rahal is no dummy, there's times when the driver just says, hey, I can't make up as much difference on this road circuit. The guy is going too fast. He might be able to make up a little, but not that much. So he's going to sit back and take a second. It's a whole lot better than he's had most of the year.
Ross Bentley from British Columbia is out of this race. As we look at the race leader, Bobby Rahal, coming around to the start-finish area. Bobby Rahal actually 2nd as we look ahead from Rahal's nose camera. Rahal is 2nd. The race leader is Al Unser Jr. Rahal 2nd, followed by Scott Goodyear. There's Al Unser Jr. He has now lapped Teo Fabi, who is running 8th, and is about to lap Emerson Fittipaldi, who is running 7th.
Now you notice that Rahal just picked up a whole bunch of time on little Al, all because little Al got right in the middle of that traffic. Now, in just a little bit, Rahal is going to get that same traffic, but I started to mention, little Al and Rahal have stayed about 7 seconds apart, which is a part of the job of the crew. They tell little Al where Rahal is every time they come by, so he has a feeling of what he should do.
Al Unser Jr. about to lap Emerson Fittipaldi. Al Unser Jr.'s best finish has been 4th this year in Phoenix. Al Unser Jr. Jr. at the end of the straightaway, still unable to get by Emerson Fittipaldi.
The traffic will really hurt a guy an awful lot, Brian, and especially on a road circuit like right there where you get into the chicane. If Little Al happens to have a faster line to it, he just can't pass right there. Nobody can. But Ray Hall's going to run it. Here's Ray Hall coming right there. He's going to run into some of the same problems. He's going to get by the same guys that Little Al did.
Bobby Rahal on lap 87 out of a scheduled 102 is now running 8 seconds behind Al Unser Jr. There's the nose cam shot from Rahal looking ahead to Emerson Fittipaldi. Emerson Fittipaldi is 7.
Little Al, for example, during all this traffic has lost approximately 2 seconds to Rahal. But that's nothing to worry about as long as it looks like he's going to clear that traffic.
And running down the top 10, it's Al Unser Jr. There's your race leader as he goes by Fittipaldi. Al Unser Jr. followed by Bobby Rahal. Goodyear is 3rd, Johansson 4th, Mario Andretti 5th, Nigel Mansell 6th, Fittipaldi 7th, Bobby 8th, Boycell 9th, and Danny Sullivan is 10th. Ken Daniels, what do you have?
Well, I'm in Scott Goodyear's pit, Brian, and just speaking with Derek Walker again, they are having trouble speaking with Scott Goodyear. Again, the communication link hasn't been great today, but apparently the link, Scott Goodyear's gears, giving him some problems as well. He's missing some gears, and that's causing him some concern, but Derek Walker hasn't been able to confirm that with Scott just yet, but that's what he believes the problem is.
Ken, you know, it's interesting, as you were talking, Bobby Rahal pointed out, or Bobby Unser pointed out, that Bobby Rahal is making a bit of a move.
Well, what happened was that Little Al, as soon as he got by that traffic, he picked back up 1 second of the 2 seconds that he lost. So Rahal is having that same problem with those guys he's passing as Little Al had. Like trying to pass Emo is just not an easy job.
Rahal is running 2nd. You see Paul Tracy behind him. Paul Tracy is running 13th and is 9 laps down. He had electrical problems early. As we look at Bobby Rahal, let's go down to Sally Lerner.
And everything is just going fine in Bobby Rahal's pit, but you know, Bobby Unser, you talked about some of the traffic that they have to get through. Well, there's some negotiations going on in this pit. Some of the team members will run to other pits, like just recently they ran to Paul Tracy's pit and they said, please ask Paul to let us get by because we're running for the win and he's not running for anything. So there's a lot of negotiation, a lot of running back and forth. They want this win and they want it badly. Back to you, Brian.
That goes to show you that beggars will be choosers. They'll do anything they can to get there. Hey, you know, I reckon that's just what you ought to be doing.
The race leader is Al Unser Jr. Scott Goodyear runs 3rd. You're watching live coverage of the 1993 Molson Indy Vancouver on CBC. Welcome back to Vancouver. The race leader, Al Unser Jr., has just completed 90 out of 102 laps here in Vancouver, and his lead over Bobby Rahal is 6 seconds.
Yes, and he's just sitting there holding his own, trying his best. He realizes that he's really not too far away from trying to win a race. With the 6-second lead, 6 to 7 seconds is what he gets, plus or minus the traffic that they run into. So just think of the pressure that's on him. He's not had any wins this year. The pressure is really on to win. We know he's going to drive for another team next year. We're just not too sure who it's for.
If you were with us or were not with us earlier, the hot rumor is that Al Unser Jr. will join Roger Penske. Penske will run a 3-car team. Emerson Fittipaldi, Paul Tracy, and Al Unser Jr. The sponsors being Marlboro for sure. Mobil is a good bet, and word on pit row is McDonald's Corporation may be involved. Also, Danny Sullivan. Rick Gallis would like to buy him out. Sullivan is not cooperating, and of course, Scott Goodyear. McKenzie is pulling out of racing after making such a great contribution. Scott Goodyear either has to get new sponsorship or could leave. Derek Walker, car 16 is Stefan Johansson, about to lap Maschusta. Maschusta is 12th and 6 laps down. Johansson is running 4th behind Al Unser Jr., Bobby Rahal, and Scott Goodyear.
How about the rumor of Jim O'Donnell, the ex-McKinsey man, becoming the new president of CART? Now, wouldn't that be a rumor? That's just one that I heard this morning.
I tell you, you got more stories. That is the first time I've heard that one, but I'll tell you, O'Donnell is held in high regard by such people as Haas, Carl Haas, Paul Newman, Roger Penske, so I wouldn't be surprised at all.
The organization called CART would be a lot better off with Jim O'Donnell there, I'm sure.
Scott Goodyear has had a disastrous year so far. In fact, you know, you talk about ironical situations with 10 laps to go in Vancouver. The top three, Al Unser Jr., Bobby Rahal, and this man, Scott Goodyear, they've all had disastrous years so far in 1993. It looks like one of them is going to end the drought here in Vancouver.
Well, I just think it's so nice to see a racetrack in a place this beautiful and have it be the turnaround for three guys that have really are good racers but had a terrible year so far.
Scott Goodyear, 33 years of age. There is Stefan Johansson right behind him. Johansson is running fourth.
Stefan Johansson's one of those guys that's going to win a race one of these days. Tony Bettenhausen has made a super good car owner. It's a brand new Penske chassis. I know we don't discuss that very much that Johansson drives. I don't know why. The world doesn't know why Penske sold that car to them, because normally Penske won't sell his cars.
Al Unser Jr.'s lead now 4.8 seconds over Bobby Rahal. Al Unser Jr. has never been worse than third in Vancouver. He won here in 1990, was third in 91, and second to Michael Andretti last year. Less than 10 laps to go. Unser Jr., the 1990 IndyCar champion, about to come through the start-finish area.
Notice he's not smoking his car. Tires going down into turn 10 now. He's trying to be a little bit more careful. Making a mistake now just wouldn't be proper.
He is on lap 94. This is a 102-lap race. Danny Sullivan is about to be lapped.
Now here's the guy that's his teammate, Danny Sullivan, and I guarantee you one thing: those two guys have not gotten gotten along well all year. Let's kind of watch this and see how this comes. A little Al catching it.
As we look ahead from Bobby Rahal's car, Rahal is second to Al Unser Jr.
Second place, Bobby Rahal.
Just a few laps remaining. It's Al Unser Jr., Bobby Rahal, Scott Goodyear is third, Stefan Johansson is fourth, Mario Andretti is fifth, Nigel Mansell is sixth, Emerson Fittipaldi is seventh, Teo Fabi is eighth, Raul Boesel is ninth, and Danny Sullivan is 10th.
Little Al's losing just ever so little. There's 4.5 seconds ahead of Bobby Rahal right now. Rahal is moving up just ever so little. Part of that, I think, is because little Al is being extra careful. He doesn't care if Rahal gets all the way up to him at the last, just as long as he can't pass. So now we have a different type of thinking going on. Of course, Rahal wants to push, catch him. Little Al just doesn't want to make a mistake, Brian.
Can we question Rahal's strategy, perhaps, coming in early for that pit stop?
Well, there really isn't a lot of choice. He got caught with his pants down on that one because he had to make a decision, or his crew did, on somebody has to pit if they're in the lead. So theoretically, I should have thought they would have all come in together. They played it a little bit conservative with Rahal's car. Rick Gallis hung her out this time. I'm proud of Rick for doing it because it worked. But remember, he could have run little Al out of fuel possibly on the track.
Through 96 laps, it's a 102-lap race. Bobby Rahal now 4.3 seconds behind the race leader, Al Unser Jr. There's Nigel Mansell. Mansell is running sixth and about to be lapped by the race leader, Al Unser Jr. So Mansell, Bobby Unser, the PPG points leader coming in here, just wanted to finish perhaps in the top four to stay ahead of Fittipaldi and Paul Tracy. Tracy well out of it today with electrical problems, and Fittipaldi is currently running seventh.
Mansell just not having a good day today. I don't know whether he feels bad. Probably not the problem. It's probably that he just made a mistake on his decision on how the car setting would be before the race during practice. And, you know, even a guy as good as Mansell makes those mistakes occasionally. We see all of them do.
The race leaders on lap 98.
Mansell moved right over and let Little Al by so easy. That's what Little Al was kind of hoping Emo would have done a little while ago, because Emo held him up quite a while.
Now there are 5 cars on the same lap. The race leader, Al Unser Jr., Bobby Rahal, Scott Goodyear, Johansson, and Mario Andretti. Mansell is 6th and a lap down. Maschusta just passed, is now 7 laps down and running 12th. Al Unser Jr. back across the start-finish line before a record crowd in Vancouver.
Coming on, that was 90, should be 98 laps done right there for Little Al. 4 laps to go. You can bet there's a lot going through his mind right now, Brian.
His best finish this year was a 4th on that short oval in Phoenix early in the season.
3.3 seconds ahead, Brian.
Al Unser Jr. is running first. Scott Goodyear will have his best finish of the year if he can keep this car on the road. He's running 3rd, but right behind him is Stefan Johansson in the Amex car 16, who was 3rd here last year. This could be the best race on the course right now as we look ahead from Scott Goodyear. Johansson is all over Goodyear. Goodyear hanging by a thread to 3rd place.
Less than 4 laps to go. Johansson is going to push so hard you can't believe it right now. Goodyear knows what's going on too. He knows he's there.
That's the view ahead from Scott Goodyear's car.
Ford powered right there. Johansson's in a Chevrolet. There's a Lola chassis in Scott Goodyear. A Penske chassis right behind him, one of the new Penskes.
And across the start-finish area comes Scott Goodyear. 3 laps to go. Goodyear and the race leaders are on lap 100. This is a 102-lap race in Vancouver. Goodyear now appearing to put just a bit of distance between himself and Stefan Johansson. The only cars on the same lap, Al Unser Jr., Bobby Rahal, Scott Goodyear, Johansson, and Mario Andretti. Nigel Mansell a lap down and running 6th. Scott Goodyear trying to get by Raul Boisel, who is 2 laps down and running 9th. The view ahead to Boisel from Goodyear's car.
Johansson's still working hard on Goodyear. There's the position that we're looking at right there. They're really close right now, down through the hairpin, or excuse me, turn 10, right across the start-finish line. Johansson's awfully close right now.
And with 2 laps to go, Scott Goodyear is 3rd, pursued by Stefan Johansson. Al Unser Jr. is the race leader. Bobby Rahal is 2nd. Rahal is now nearly 8 seconds behind Al Unser Jr. There's the race leader, Al Unser Jr.
That's that gremlin called traffic that you get into. It really makes a difference sometimes. Little Al looks like he's not having any problems. Oh, there's the white flag. 1 lap to go.
1 lap to go in Vancouver. And let's ride with Al Unser Jr. as he tries for his 19th career victory. Johansson has just passed Goodyear. Johansson is now 3rd. Al Unser Jr. will win the 1993 Molson Indy Vancouver. Here comes the checkered flag for Al Unser Jr. Al Unser Jr. wins. That's Mansell. He's well down. Here's the 2nd place car. Bobby Rahal crosses. He is 2nd. Al Unser Jr. wins.
Rahal had slid, for example, Brian, to 11 seconds at last lap.
And it appears that Stefan Johansson has knocked Scott Goodyear off the podium here in Vancouver for the 2nd year in a row. Johansson is 3rd, and Scott Goodyear will be 4th. There's Stefan Johansson, and Scott Goodyear crosses the finish line to finish fourth. So it's Al Unser Jr. winning for the first time in 1993, followed by Bobby Rahal, Stefan Johansson, Scott Goodyear, Mario Andretti is fifth, Nigel Mansell is sixth, Emerson Fittipaldi is seventh, Teo Fabi is eighth, Raul Boisel is ninth, and Danny Sullivan rounds out the top 10. Ross Bentley dropped out. He will finish 17th. Paul Tracy was still running, but 9 laps down, and Tracy will officially finish 13th. Paul Tracy, a very disappointing day, Bobby, because he was running so well early.
Well, it was a disappointing day, but you know, he's had so many good ones this year, and he can live with that. But the thing that's going to bother him the most, obviously, is the points that he didn't get from having a mechanical problem or electrical fire.
Well, Al Unser Jr. has never been worse, as I said earlier, than third here in Vancouver. He wins for the second time in 4 years.
You know, Brian, he would really like to leave the Gallus team with a lot of good feelings, too. They're close friends between he and Rick Gallus, as opposed to being just a driver-owner situation. So there's going to be a lot of happiness from that, if nothing else here.
Stefan Johansson is third. Al Unser Jr. It's not official, but it looks like he'll join Roger Penske to form a 3-car team in 1994 with Emerson Fittipaldi and Paul Tracy. Al Unser Jr. has won for Rick Gallus and actor Gene Hackman here in Vancouver this afternoon.
Can you just imagine how happy Gene Hackman must be? I mean, he's just in as a new race car owner, a part owner, and now he wins his first race, none other than in Vancouver.
Scott Goodyear, who had the pole,
sliding up
here and ready to get on the podium, but he will finish fourth. Let's just listen in on Al Unser Jr.
And there's a lot of emotion here. Alan Mertens is here, Shelley's here, Owen Snyder, and of course the helmet's still on. As soon as we can get an opportunity, we'll get a very quick word with Alan Mertens. Just about good job. But I tell you, just getting handshakes and hugs from everybody in this team.
We understand ESPN will interview him first as they have to get off the air. We are able to stay on the air until the bottom of the hour, so we will hear from Al Unser Jr. in just a minute, but as a courtesy move, we give ESPN the first interview, and let's go down to Sally Larvik.
Okay, and Bobby Rahal is getting out of the cockpit of the car, and we'll wait while he stands up and just adjusts himself a little bit. Bobby, congratulations, your second win. Second place again for the second time this year. You were second also in 1991 here.
Well, I'm a little disappointed. You know, we led so much of the race and really lost on that stop. I guess he stayed out a couple more laps and really made some distance on us, and then I just couldn't get through traffic very well. I kept getting held up, and you know, that's all it took. But yeah, I'm pleased to be second.
I was going to say, you got to be happy with the finish because this has been kind of a bad year for you.
Well, it's had good points and bad points. You know, if we can. I'm losing my concentration with him talking to me here.
Okay, congratulations anyway. Go ahead, what were you going to say?
It's just, you know, yes, it's nice to run so competitively, but disappointing when you lead so much not to win.
Congratulations anyway, Bobby Rahal. Now let's go to Kenny Daniels.
Thank you, Sally. We have Al Unser Jr., who is still getting congratulations, and Al, is something about a magnet on that podium for you in Vancouver?
Well, I don't know. You know, Michael's had us covered here the last couple of years, and I just want to thank my guys. They did a great job today. The Valvoline car ran perfect, and so I'm just really happy.
Tell me about in the pits, because certainly that seemed really quick, and your strategy to stay out on the track when Bobby Rahal came in.
Well, as well as he was pulling me down the straightaway, I figured he was using quite a lot of fuel, and so I was hoping that we could stretch ours out a little bit further. And sure enough, we were able to stretch it out a little bit further, and so you know, it's great the stop my guys made, and I depended on them, and they came through flying colors.
It's been a long year for you ever since the Indy 500.
Yeah, that was the last one we had, and we've been fighting really hard ever since, and I'm really glad it came in Vancouver because I enjoy Vancouver an awful lot.
Well, it's a real cat and mouse game today throughout for you.
Yeah, it was, you know, just, it was going to be a fuel economy run, and you know, with all the yellows we had, that put it more into a race, and so, you know, it was great.
Thank you, Al. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Let's go now to Sally Larvik. Sally?
And the third place finisher, Stefan Johansson, and Stefan watches as he rolls the car away. Congratulations to your third place finish here at Vancouver.
Thanks, yeah, it's great. Big relief for everybody, I think, in the team.
And no incidents this year as there was last year.
No, not one. The guys did a fantastic job in the pits today.
The car was working well all weekend. If somebody thought maybe you had some new developmental parts in it.
No, as a matter of fact, I think we went back to just about everything that's standard. I guess it paid off because the car ran all week anyway.
Okay, you deserve it, Stefan. It's been a tough year for you so far.
Yeah, we've had a really bad season so far with just bad breaks in all the races. But, you know, this is great for the morale of the team and you know, hopefully it'll give us a big boost for the rest of the season now.
Congratulations to you, Tony Bettenhausen, and the rest of the team. Thank you. Ken?
Thank you, Sally. I'm surrounded by greatness. Rick Gallis, Gene Hackman. Rick, let's start with you. What a day it was. And certainly, yeah, that's right. Let's start with the left great one. Certainly some great strategy on your part. You told me at the time you're taking a chance. You kept Rick out a little bit longer when Bobby came in.
Well, yeah, actually Owen Snyder, my chief mechanic, made that call, and it was a great call on his part. We saved fuel. The concept was to stay out as long as we can. We talked to Bobby Unser. Bobby's a friend of mine, and this was kind of be a strategy race, and we knew the car was going to be good, and if we could get Al out front, he'll take care of everything from there, and that's what he did.
Now the big question is, when you go back to the Indy 500 last year, what the heck took so long?
Yeah, I know, that's right. So it's
have you figured it out yet?
No, we're just going to enjoy this race, and this is the second race win for the team this year, and it's the Al and I have won a race at least 1 year every year since 1988. So for he and I, it's a neat deal, and for the team, and this team never quits. You know, it's a real championship team. I'm real proud of them.
So many concerns about Al Unser Jr. leaving and maybe going to Team Penske. Your thoughts on that? I know you've heard all the talk.
I'm not worried about that right now. We're going to drink some champagne together, and that'll worry about that later.
Well, you got around that one. Thank you very much, Rick. Let's go over here to Gene Hackman. French connection. Is that how you got involved in great high-speed chases?
Well, it would look like it. But that would pale compared to what happened here today. We were very excited about this. This is wonderful, especially after last week at Elkhart Lake. It was just a disaster, so we really came all the way back.
What's it like to be a very happy owner?
Well, it's different, I'll tell you. It's really exciting.
Have you long been involved, wanted to get involved in something like this?
Yeah, I've always wanted to be involved at this end, and finally the opportunity came up, so we've jumped at it.
Well, Gene Hackman, thank you for being here today, and congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Let's go now to Sally Larman.
Okay, we are with Scott Goodyear, and Scott, it's got to be disappointing for you. You were doing so well at the beginning of the race, and then it looked like you were going to end up in third, but you had to take fourth.
It is. I guess just a little gearbox problem. It's had a little difficulty getting it into third and fifth, and I think fifth went away from us first, and then third. So it's you want to be on the podium, and it's a devil to lose it on the very last lap. But it's part of the game, I guess.
You also had some radio communication early on that you had trouble hearing your pit.
Yeah, I don't know. We've got a Motorola system in there that it has minds of its own actually everywhere we go. So I don't know what that deal is, but we have another way of communicating on the board, so we weren't too bad with that.
We look ahead to the future. We look ahead to your future. And there's been rumors that this will be the last year for you with Walker Motorsports, that you're considering other possibilities, because even though you love the team and the team is good to you, you've got to start thinking about your future and wins.
Well, the only thing I want to do is win. I mean, I probably would have been a little bit happy with being on the podium today, but we want to win it, and I don't like being second, and we'll just have to wait and see what the future holds for us in the next 3 or 4 weeks. I guess all decisions will be made then.
Okay, thank you very much, Scott Goodyear. Congratulations on your fourth place finish. Brian?
All right, Sally, it's Al Unser Jr., followed by Bobby Rahal, Stefan Johansson, and Scott Goodyear. Mario Andretti 5th, Paul Tracy 13th, Ross Bentley was 17th. Stay with us. Lots more to come. We'll return live to Vancouver on Sports Weekend.